If I was in my 20s popping out babies, for me, that's for me. It just wouldn't, that wasn't a good time in my life that I should have been having children.
Based on the responses that I received to a question that I asked about a month ago, asking y'all to share with me some benefits that you've identified, benefits of waiting to conceive until later. Later is relative in your life. A lot of you agree with Christina that there are definitely benefits to waiting, and that maybe having kids in your 20s wouldn't have been the best fit for you and your family. So I'm really excited about this particular video, because this video, the third and final video in our multi-part series, all about the benefits of waiting to conceive until later in life, I get to finally share all of those responses. And they were good, y'all. They were so good. Let's dive right into them, starting with our very first theme, maturity. I think that was the word that I saw the most when I looked at the replies. Y'all talked about the opportunity to heal and to mature more than anything. The benefit I see for myself waiting until my mid to late 30s was that I had enough time to heal from childhood trauma I experienced. In my 20s, I wouldn't have been ready mentally and emotionally and would have just unconsciously passed down the trauma that my mom unconsciously passed down to me and her mom passed to her, and so on and so forth. It gave me more time to mature, heal, travel, figure out who I am and what my purpose is, connect with my husband, and truly want children because I want to share love, and not just because society told me to have children by a certain time. Obviously, this is unique to everyone and their circumstances, but this is the main reason. To have more time to prepare mentally, emotionally, and physically, since I had a lot of healing to do. Last year, I interviewed Deb and Christina. In those interviews, they shared a lot of really cool and interesting stuff, and really inspiring and encouraging stuff about what it was like to wait to conceive and become parents until a bit later in life. One thing that they both said was maturity was one of the benefits of waiting. Let's go ahead and check out what they had to say.
What were the benefits of waiting until you were in your 30s to conceive?
I think for again, for me, just having a little bit more knowledge, a little bit more maturity.
And even impulse, like the impulse, like, oh, I got to do that. I got to do that. It, I think I definitely matured for that. Yeah, in general, I just think I'm a more grounded, more matured person.
This next response is a quick one, but it's an important one. So it reads, have a mature mindset to face the challenges and need to be more healthy to live longer with the child, working on it. So I think that this particular response really touched on something that I feel doesn't get talked about nearly enough. Kids are fantastic, but they also come with challenges, and a more mature mindset provides people with the tools that they need to face those challenges. Here's what someone else had to say about that idea of being more mature and able to face challenges. When you are older, you have more patience and understanding of how humans develop and how to handle difficult behaviors. Being more mature yourself wasn't the only thing that you all touched on. You also talked about the importance of having a more mature partner and a more mature relationship. This response perfectly encapsulates all of this. Having a more mature, committed partner as my child's father, it took me 17 years of dating and a lot of spiritual healing to finally choose someone capable of committing to and loving me in a healthy way. I'm pregnant with my first baby at 34. I also feel stronger and more capable myself, to where if anything ever happened and it was just me, I feel like I would be okay. Although I wanted children really young, I love how stable it feels to have children now rather than then. Both Christina and Deb shared that they didn't marry the people who they would go on to have children with until they were in their 30s.
All right. So I was, I think, like a week before 37. Um, and I was freaking out because I was like, oh my gosh, 35. And we got married like 2 days before we conceived. Like it was like everyone would start to do the math. So we wanted to wait until we were married. I actually did. My husband's like, we're waiting. So I'm like, okay, we can wait. But I'm like, we're starting that right now. So I was all freaking out because I thought it would be hard. I really thought that being over 35, I just figured it was going to take a really long time. So I had these two books. I had one was Taking Charge of Your Fertility. And then there was another one, I think it's called like 3 months to Make a Baby or something like that, that you're preparing your body. And I'm looking at cleanses and eating well and taking my temperature. So I prepared, I did acupuncture, I did all the things. And then we got pregnant on our first try, which my husband's like, we need to name our child. I told you so.
Also, the biggest thing, not being married yet, and making sure you're with the right person. And I think all that sometimes you develop later on, and sometimes it happens before. I mean, sometimes people meet them younger or meet who their partner's going to be earlier on in life, and that's great. For me, it wasn't until I was 30.
This response shares that sometimes it just takes a little bit longer for people to find their person. In my case, there wasn't a chance to have kids early as I only met my partner in my mid-30s. Prior to that, the relationships I was in were bad. After we met, it took me 3 years to get a permanent job, essential as my partner is self-employed, then another year for us to buy a big enough place to consider a child. That timing coincided with me reaching a point of emotional stability, working out some intergenerational trauma. And then the pandemic hit, which put everything on hold as our finances were badly hit, as well as the anxiety of those times. So here we are, later in life, TTC by default. I guess the answer is that the benefits are that we have financial, emotional, and relationship stability now, which I think will make us better parents and better co-parents. We also know full well that a life without kids, should our attempts fail, is okay, because we lived that already. I would also like to mention that the narrative surrounding later in life parents is often either of a woman being career driven and therefore putting breeding on hold or being busy partying, but for many people, it is actually way more basic than that. The right person doesn't show up, or there is financial instability. This is a big one where we live, or health concerns, or aging relatives. A lot of people just don't have the choice to have kids early. I love that they pointed this out. For a lot of people, it's not a conscious choice. It's just that life happened, and life is what delayed their timeline, which is not a bad thing, I don't think, because we're all on a different timeline. There's also something to be said about giving yourself the time to live life and not feel like you have to give up the things that you're not ready to give up in order to have a kid. And actually, this next response kind of talks about that a little bit. Let's take a look at it. We waited because we didn't want to grow up. I regret prioritizing partying over starting a family, but I do feel like we're where we need to be. Thank you so much for sharing this. I think it takes a lot of bravery to say, like, I regret that I prioritize something else. I just want to provide a different narrative, or maybe like a counter narrative to that. I applaud you for prioritizing partying, for prioritizing doing the things that were important to you at the time, because I imagine it wouldn't have been great if you had kids and you still had that urge to party. On some level, would you, maybe not you, someone else, but they have resented the kid because they felt like they were missing out on life? Would they have regretted the kid because they weren't ready yet, and that child, they saw that child as like something that was impeding their ability to live the life they actually wanted? I applaud people who say, like, the truth is that I'm not ready. This is where my focus is, and I want to give this my focus. Waiting gave Deb the opportunity to explore and have really important life experiences.
It helped me check things off my mental list of feeling confident, and I don't know if worldly is the best word, but I saw a lot, and I learned more about who I was because I was able to put the time into that. And I learned to prioritize. It doesn't mean that I couldn't have, things just would have been different. But where I sit now, I enjoyed the timeline of having kids later.
Travel was another theme that emerged. Let's take a look at this next response. It talks a little bit about the role of travel and adventure and being a part of this important phase of waiting. Hi, I found that waiting is allowing my husband and I to work on ourselves as individuals, as well as get some time to have adventures together. Right after my chemical in fall 2021, we were already in the process of selling our house, buying a camper, and moving into an apartment temporarily until we were ready to travel 2 years later, and we started our cross-country road trip this past September. Feels like a baby will happen as soon as we are on the road or in a place where we may decide to settle in. I'm 38 and he's 41. This response reminds us that the fun doesn't end when the baby comes. They shared, in our case, we have traveled a lot before having our baby. We still travel now that we have him, but it is certainly different. We enjoyed those times and experiences, and now we continue to enjoy it as a family of 3. There was also a lot of emphasis on financial stability, which for a lot of people doesn't come until later in their life. This person shared that they feel more financially stable and more mentally and spiritually grounded. Delaying parenthood meant that Deb had a chance to establish her business before becoming a mother.
Well, I don't think my business would be what it is because I had a lot of time to dedicate to that. That was truly my first baby. So I could really put all my focus into that. Now, 2 kids later, I am juggling everything in the school hours. Once they go off to school and then once I have to pick them up, it is those hours that my schedule is bonkers. And before, I had a lot more spaciousness. I could, work in the morning, take a break, come back, work in the evening. Now I'm helping kids get to sleep and I'm making dinner and I'm unpacking lunch boxes. So for me, it was really helpful to have that time to dedicate to my career, which I deeply enjoy.
Financial stability was also a part of this person's response. So they found that they were more mature in some aspects: mental, financial, parenting, knowledge. They said, I personally had to rethink about what life values I would like to pass on to our children, roles we had to be for our children as parents, a friend, a teacher. Religiously, they were more ready and conscious about every person and his authority. What was really cool about this response was that this person has the chance to actually compare what it's like to have a kid in their 20s to a kid in their 30s. And so this is what they have to say. I was 28 when I had my first, and I'll be 36 when I have my second. My husband is 42. I feel like we've been able to give our son a lot more love, attention, care, and just stuff in general than I would have been able to in my 20s. Let's keep this conversation going because it feels like a really important one. So head down to the comments below and let me know your thoughts. Maybe there were some benefits that weren't touched on in this video. Share those. Or maybe there were things that you hadn't thought of before and actually changed your way of thinking. Share that. Or maybe there were things that you agreed with and it was just affirming and nice to hear. Let me know that too. Or anything else really. Just hang out. Tell me what's going on. I want to know what you're thinking. I want to know what you're feeling. So I will see you again. But until then, make sure to check out the other videos in this series, which I will link to in the description box below. Until I see you again, be well and bye for now.